How long do you think the longest aerial combat mission in history lasted? An hour? 2 hours? Maybe 3? Well, what if I told you that there was a mission that lasted for 70 hours? This video will tell the tales of the incredible endurance missions completed by the B-2 aircraft from the 509th Bomb Wing while operating out of their home base at Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri. These missions were the longest combat bombing missions in history, with some lasting over 70 hours. The worst attack on America's home country occurred over 14 years ago. Once the dust and rubble from the two towers collapse cleared, it was obvious that America needed to act. President George W. Bush spoke to first responders at Ground Zero 13 days after the assault. "I can hear you, the rest of the world can hear you, and the ones who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us shortly." Bush declared, "Whether we bring our adversaries to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done," in a speech to Congress and the country a week later. The entire U.S. fleet of B-2 Spirit bombers has had its permanent home at Whiteman Air Force Base since 1993. Although 132 bombers were initially intended to be purchased, due to the conclusion of the Cold War, only 21 aircraft were ever purchased. The first B-2 was named Spirit of Missouri to honor the state home to America's most cutting-edge bomber. In honor of the state where most of the aircraft's assembly and testing had taken place, the second B-2 was given the moniker Spirit of California. The Spirit of America was the straightforward name of the final B-2, which began operations in 2000. Most of the active B-2 fleet participated in a strategic command exercise on the morning of 9/11, with air crews inside their aircraft listening to radios. The news that a plane had struck one of the World Trade Center towers quickly spread across the fleet. The entire force was aware of the implications as soon as word of the second plane hitting the other tower spread. This was no accident. America was under attack. The 509th Bomb Wing identified 6 crews that would fly the initial B-2 missions if called upon. For the next 3 weeks, these crews flew simulators and actual flights practicing their procedures and coordination. During his speech to Congress, Bush said, "The Taliban must act, and act immediately. They will hand over the terrorists, or they will share in their fate." Holding to his warning, operations over Afghanistan began on October 7, 2001, less than a month after 9/11. President George W. Bush gave the B-2s the go-ahead to fly across the Pacific for the sake of operational security. The first 3 nights of the conflict saw 6 B-2 bombers fly 6 separate flights. Every night from October 7th to October 9th, 2 B-2s took off from Whiteman. Generally, they followed the same path, refueling over the Californian coast before continuing across the Pacific. The second refueling took place in the Central Pacific, close to Hawaii. The bombers had their third refueling over Guam. The 5th and final inbound refueling took place close to the British island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, while the 4th took place close to the Strait of Malacca in extreme Southeast Asia. The bombers then attacked their Afghanistan-based targets. Pakistan was the only foreign nation the bombers had to pass through while traveling over the Pacific to Afghanistan. The B-2s landed on Diego Garcia after the airstrikes and another refueling over the Indian Ocean. On 3 nights, missions were carried out against radar stations, airfields, air control centers, enemy aircraft, and training camps of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The accurate JDAMs, or Joint Direct Attack Munition, which were still fairly new to the inventory, had an accuracy of 10 feet. The longest bombing sortie in history turned out to be the 3rd of the 6 missions, which took place on the 2nd night. Captain Brian Neal and Major Melvin G. Dale manned the B-2 Spirit of America. To reach the target location alone lay more than 30 hours of flying time in front of them. Targets had changed over the lengthy voyage, and approximately 3/4 of the aim points for new targets needed to be input into the computers and explosives. Dale and Neal spent roughly 2 hours over Afghanistan after entering its airspace, dropping 12 of their 16 JDAMs. Several targets required numerous passes, allowing the B-2 to use its synthetic aperture radar to produce a 3D view of the attack area and execute a more precise drop. They then took off, contacted a tanker, and set a course toward what they believed would be Diego Garcia. But the Combined Air Operations Center called and inquired if they would be prepared to re-enter hostile territory and utilize their remaining bombs. The crew nodded in agreement and flew above Afghanistan for 90 minutes, launching 4 more weapons before heading for Diego Garcia. Spirit of America had been running continuously for more than 70 hours when it eventually landed. The 6 B-2s flew equivalent missions totaling around 70 hours over those 3 days. The longest mission before landing was the one that Dale and Neil flew. None of the planes had to divert or abort due to engine issues. In the early beginning of Operation Enduring Freedom, the B-2 raids and Tomahawk missile attacks launched by Navy ships in the Indian Ocean destroyed crucial Taliban and terrorist air defense systems. These operations paved the way for more delicate bombers to take off from Diego Garcia, including the B-1 and B-52, joined by Air Force fighters stationed elsewhere in the Middle East and Navy attack planes flying from carriers in the Indian Ocean. Some of the fighter missions took up to 18 hours to complete. Of all the aircraft that could have flown the longest combat mission in aviation history, perhaps it was serendipity or providence that the Spirit of America made that journey. The aircraft that represented the country showed that America would fly any distance, cover any ground, and overcome any obstacle to bring justice to its enemies when she is attacked. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until then, thank you for watching and have a great day.